All right, all right, all right. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the ride. All right. So I'm going to give people time to get in here. And then we're going to do what we do black and revolutionary. All right. So if you haven't checked out Black Love Today yet, you can go to blacklove.today. You can also go to blacklovetoday.com. So I'll give you guys a minute to get in here. And I'm also waiting for Denise. All right. I could never make you unhappy. So, yep, 2 minutes. If you were with us last week, that was hot. And, this is going to be hot as well. Mhm. So, I don't see this on Facebook yet. And here's Denise.
I don't know what happened to my curls, but that's all right. I'm like, what? Oh well.
Well,
Can't
my
be can't be
my
cute all the time.
that's right. Well, my curls ain't been the same
You
in
know,
shit over 20 years.
it happens. So we just gonna rock and roll.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it. How you feeling today, sister?
After I got through the most challenging part of the day, which was, like I said earlier about the COVID stuff and just trying to figure it out, I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, cool. All right. Ronnie's foreman jumped in. She jumped in early. I know we'll get a few more people.
Okay, I've seen
Uh,
that sister on your. I don't know what's going on with my glasses. They don't want to fit night right. Oh Lord. Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna just put you down over there then, since you don't want to act right.
well, we can see you even if you can't see
I
us.
know. We can put the other ones on that I can kind of see y'all. You
Okay.
know.
You got
So
spare
okay.
glasses. All right. All right. So Ronnie said, "Hey, Queen."
Hey, Queen.
Yes, yes. All right. So let's go ahead and do a little recap of last week. So basically, last week we were talking about the things that Black people are dealing with that are fueling a gender war, specifically some propaganda that's been targeted at Black women. Because the thing, the saying goes, if you want to really destroy a community, you go through the women. And so, white supremacy is crafty, it is methodical, and it's working. And so that's what we dealt with last week, talking about some of the pieces of white supremacy that have, including white feminism, that have come into our community and caused us some disruption. So today we're going to focus on one specific piece of confusion that, and we can riff and go a little broader, but we're going to start with patriarchy because we hear people talking about patriarchy all the time, and I don't think, honestly, Denise, I don't think most people even know what it means. They think they do,
I
but
think they do.
when I hear them use it, I don't think they know what it means.
Yeah, I agree, and you and I have talked about this, often that um, what we see in this society, and I'm talking specifically Western society, and getting even more laser focused and talking about within the U.S. this idea that patriarchy is so I think we consider it as two things. One, I think we consider it in general, these set of rules that allow men by virtue of being men, being born men, that they are therefore leaders and make all of the rules that everybody is supposed to subscribe to, right? So that's one thing.
And they have privilege.
And that they have privilege because of that. And so then, well, actually, I want to take that piece of it out just for a second.
Okay.
So the general, they make all the rules because, they're born men, and that's what a patriarchal society is set up. And then there's the second thing, which is brings in what you're talking about, which is specific um, to Black women and our understanding of patriarchy. And that is that patriarchy is all men against all women, that there is this dynamic, and it's like we're going to meet at the scratch line, dudes over here, chicks over there, and there's just not going to be any harmony. And so this thing that you just mentioned, this privilege, is something that Black women have ascribed Black men as having because they fit this criteria of being men, being born men, and therefore participate in this patriarchy. So all of that is wrong. All of that is wrong. And what is very interesting, and sisters and brothers, let me just say that this is not information that I just that I'm just so smart and I just figured this out. No, that's you got to do some digging, you have to do some reading, and you have to do some listening to people within our community that mean us good, that love our collective, who want to see us prosper. They want to see us have peace and harmony, and they no longer um, are going to allow the popular narratives to continue to guide us. And these popular narratives include this idea that that patriarchy is this all men against all women, and it's harming our community because, in fact, what we see is that which we have to acknowledge, is that Black men do not have this privilege that we suggest that they do via patriarchy. And there's so many of our Black scholars who are saying this, um, Black intellectuals who are saying it. God rest her soul, Bell Hooks did a number on this understanding of patriarchy as it relates to Black men and our sort of very wholesale acceptance of her descriptions and her narratives and such. So we have to be really cognizant that this idea of patriarchy is not what we've been led to believe, and it's so far from that. When you look at what patriarchy is, uh, it's a form of white supremacy. It is white
It is
supremacy.
white supremacy.
It
Yeah,
is white supremacy. And
absolutely.
and like when we talk about white feminism, I'm almost at a point where I don't even want to say white feminism anymore. I just want to say white woman supremacy because that's what
That's what it
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But the idea of saying feminism is to be able to invoke that Black women have in fact aligned ourselves and adopted these practices of this theory, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, getting back to the patriarchy, patriarchy is, and if you don't believe me, ask Dr. Tommy J. Curry. White patriarchy is white supremacy, and it is set up for the dominant culture, the men in the dominant culture, to then use everybody else to continue to oppress everybody else for the benefit of the people that are in the dominant culture. And last
Absolutely.
I checked, see, this is the part. It's not just that white women are a part of the dominant culture. Hello, they birth the dominant culture. I'm sorry.
It's
There
pretty
there is
powerful. Pretty
there is
powerful.
not enough. What other woman do you know can birth white men?
Just white women. So, let me say what's up to Preston James, my brother. He's
Okay.
watching. Zachary
What's up?
O'Banion. Uh, but listen, let's go back to, you talked about what it is. You talked about how patriarchy actually sets the rules in our society.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a black man, Denise, I'm going to ask you a loaded question as a black woman. So, how is it that some black women have formed the thought in their mind that black men are participating in
Mm-hmm.
patriarchy and
Mm-hmm.
are benefiting from it, when that would mean that we are making rules?
Right, right, right.
How does that work? What rules are black men make? We
What?
we can we can barely have any rules in our homes and in our communities, so in our
Ooh,
society.
ooh,
Really?
wow, wow, brother. That's a deep question. So I think that there are a lot of things at play. I think the first thing that's at play is, again, really looking at white supremacy and how white supremacy works. And you earlier today, when we were talking, brought up, Neely Fuller's quote that every
Always.
black person should know. If you don't understand, white supremacy and how it
Everything else
works,
will confuse you.
everything else will confuse you. And
Yeah.
so this idea of feminism is, again, white supremacy, and it is working exactly the way that it is supposed to work. So, much in the way that everybody has been given an out, and I put that in air quotes, an out, meaning an out seemingly out of this black struggle, out of this black oppression, whether it's our black elite. I mean, look at our whole congressional black caucus, who, and they get to sit on boards, and you know they get nice pensions and health care, and they can't get uh, they can't seem to do anything for us. I mean, that's what they tell us. um so that's been their out. LGBT, our queer brothers and sisters, they've been given an out through this LGBTQ movement, which we know is run by white men, their interests, and it's racist as hell.
That is
And so
gay white supremacy.
yes, yes, it's absolutely,
Yeah.
what it is. I mean, we can, that's another conversation, because we can really go into how, not only how they have not shown up for our black queer brothers and sisters, but we can also go into how they've absolutely sabotaged our black queer brothers and sisters. We can talk about all those HIV dollars
Right.
that were supposed to be um, given to black communities, and et cetera, et cetera. So, but again, and I think that black women have been given the same out through feminism. So
Yes.
that's part of the issue. The second part of the issue, in terms of, how is it that black women have accepted this, and how are we really looking at this and say, oh my goodness, they really do have, power. Um, when our black scholars are writing this and preaching it to us as the gospel, and nobody is challenging this. Nobody has challenged, our black feminist scholars. Nobody has, you know nobody's black men essentially are the only ones that have been challenging our black scholarship, particularly as it relates to black men. So you have all of these feminists out here who get lots of dollars, who get lots of funding at these various universities, academic institutions, and they put out this work, and it's horrible. It's horrible. And I don't mean from the perspective of, because I'm not gonna make the accusation that there is this complete and utter malice. Although I'm willing to say
I
that I
would.
believe there is
I would.
malice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, but they are, they're black men, black male suffering is a commodity. It is a commodity. And so our black female scholars, these women out here who profess to be some of the leading. So not only do they profess to be some of the leading scholars on um, feminism and gender studies, right? They also are considered some of the leading scholars on racism. So,
Yeah.
which is also kind of scary when you think about it, because if you are talking about the issue of racism and you do not first and foremost recognize that your black men bear the burden.
The
I'm gonna
brunt.
repeat that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all bear that brunt of white supremacy, and you bear it, and the numbers, the data bears that.
Yes.
So that's the second piece of it. Like, our scholars, are perpetuating this, and we're taking what they're saying as gospel, and there is no movement to challenge them. And then the third thing is, which I think is, again, so important about our own self-reflection, and we talked about this last week, and being able to say, hey, I'm sorry. And that is, we have become complicit in
Yes.
this through our own actions, because we have been, it's wonderful to be black girl magic and to have all of these things, these doors open up for you because you are a woman and you have been deemed the queens, you've been deemed um, the people who are necessary to uplift in order for the community to have any excellence, to have any advancement, to attain whatever this collective goal that we are supposedly striving for, and it's been placed in our hands. And so there's a huge responsibility with that, and the numbers say that we've squandered it, that we have not honored it. And I think that whenever you have a situation where someone has not honored something, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to say, my bad, I'm sorry, I was misguided, I was misinformed, I didn't know, I was confused, hey, I was just thinking about myself, right? Or they might just keep pushing and say,
And
hey,
that's
that's
what we're
on you,
seeing. That's
catch me if you can,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we're seeing, and we're seeing, back to the alphabet community, the L giblets, as I like to call them.
Mm-hmm.
They had an opportunity with a couple of people, and more recently with Brittany Griner, to
Yes.
show that they would get involved and bang the drum slowly for someone who is black and LGBT, but that's not what they're about. They
Right.
are about white supremacy. And when they got involved with Juicy Smouye, as Dave Chappelle calls him, when they got involved with him, they only got involved to point a finger at straight black men.
Right.
You
Right. Right. Right.
know, like,
It's
why
your
aren't you?
fault.
Yeah, no, more than that. Why aren't you guys defending him?
Right.
Well,
Right. Right.
he's one
Right.
of you as much as he's one of us. Why
Right.
aren't you? And so I think that that because we are led by white supremacy and white supremacy's patriarchy, I think that that's why there's, back to Dr. Neely Fuller, we're confused. So many of us have no idea what's. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the Wiz. We didn't know, that dude was back there moving,
Moving
pulling
the
the strings, and so We didn't understand, and that's how we are now. We don't understand how things are operating. We don't understand white supremacy or the patriarchy, which is why we don't understand what feminism is doing. We didn't understand. I think black men got a clue when the LGBT movement targeted us. They didn't go after white men, Hispanic men, or
Mm-hmm.
Asian men. They came after
Mm-hmm.
straight black men to demand that we accept, love, support, and date trans people, which would make us homosexual.
Well, and yeah, and not only that, and this is all tied to politics, by the way, our very liberal folk, right, have been trying to convince us, who was that? The young smart, what do they call themselves? The young smart brothers,
The
or
very smart
very,
brothers
very yeah,
who
VSB,
pulled a dulo because we later found out that they are very gay brothers, and they
very
should have made that clear up front.
well, and I've been convinced that the only thing they read are the things that they write.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, the very smart brothers, started, or if not started, although that's the first time I had seen it actually in print, the conversation of black men being the white men of the black community, which again
Sure.
goes to this notion of privilege. Now, I'm trying to understand how anyone has privilege and they can't keep police officers from pumping 60 plus bullets in them like that.
Right.
That's just me. If I had privilege,
Yeah.
I think at the very least, I would assure that, myself included, the people that look like me, were protected from being murdered
Well,
at a whim.
there's a long list, and that's certainly at the top of the list.
That would
If
be at the
black,
top of
yeah,
that would be at
if
the top,
yeah, if black men had some kind of privilege, if black men were out there setting the rules, then
Yes,
we would be able to stop the police from killing us.
yes,
We would be able to stop the courts from overly prosecuting us.
yes,
And
yes.
we would be able to stop them from giving us these heavy sentences. If there were patriarchy
If right.
being played out within the group called black men.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and so, it just doesn't exist. It's a very manufactured conversation, and it fits the narrative, it fits the political climate of really, and let's be very clear, fits the political climate not just of today, but this is historically been the climate, because white supremacy, from the moment that, again, I'm telling you, read Dr. Tommy Curry's book. I'm telling y'all y'all in the virtual world, read that brother's book, please. But this is, and we all should know this, from the very beginning of chattel slavery, with everything that they did, they, meaning white men, and white women did to us, meaning black men and black women, had to figure out how to justify their deviance and their wickedness and their violence. And so what they did was made us believe that the black man was in fact the violent savage, that, he was so violent and savage that even him making eye contact with a white woman
Was
somehow would
dangerous.
transmit, right, because he was such a monster, would
Yeah.
somehow transmit or translate into some unimaginable, untold violence to her, and required him to be put down, not even like a dog. I mean, the kinds of violence that black men endured, and that's not to say that black women did not endure, because they were lynching black men, black women, and black children. But
Indeed.
again, understanding that there was a very specific and particular violence that was associated with black men, and their demonization and murdering of black men. So that it fits this narrative of Black men being savage and therefore useless, and us needing to control them or
Well,
even dispose of them. You know, they're
right.
expendable. If we can't control them, get rid of them.
Yeah,
They're
we got to get rid of.
expendable.
So
Yeah,
let's bring that back to the
yeah,
patriarchy and those who serve the patriarchy, because here's what happened. We knew that existed all along, but the real wicked part was when it was transmitted to black women. So
yes,
we had white people forever saying, "Oh, that bad black man, he's evil, he's a savage. Let's go get him." But right now, we see a huge number of black women who are repeating what the
yeah.
patriarchy has issued, which is that black men are violent, black men are savages, and black men have some kind of secret, uncontrollable lust for white women. This has come from black women now. This comes from
That
black women.
that's
Even to
I
the point where they're saying stuff that doesn't make any sense. They start saying, "Oh, more black women are killed by black men. Black men are just out here killing us. They're raping us." I'm
right.
like, what universe are you in where we're just roaming the countryside, raping and killing?
It's so saturated in the collective thinking of Black women. So I don't know if you remember when Tashina Arnold, what was it, a few months ago, put out on Twitter, "Hey sisters, I'm just asking this question. What is it that we can do to stop, um, emasculating Black men?" And she had over 3,000. That didn't even include shares. She had over 3,000 responses.
Yeah,
And the responses were things like, and I know because I went through them, people, virtual, where you can't make this stuff up.
yeah,
And people were saying, women, let me be clear. Black women were saying things like, "Oh, well, we don't owe them shit," or, "We will stop emasculating them when they stop raping us and abusing us,"
yes.
or, "Here's another one who's just caping for Black men." And these were the kinds of comments, or comments like, "Why are we even investing in Black men?" Because there is a sub movement to divest from Black men. I'm not sure how you do that, um, as a
Well,
collective. Where, like, I'm like,
yeah.
so what? In 3 generations, we not gonna be Black anymore?
Well, I don't know how you do that without also killing yourself.
Right. It's like,
Because yeah, like we exist together. We
right.
exist, and I hear sisters say, "Oh, the black man doesn't protect the black woman." Well, you sound crazy, because we naturally protect each other, protect our children. So if you are talking about divesting from black men, you can't exist. You can't thrive. You can't
Right.
prosper. A few of you can be angry and psycho because, we can't
Right.
control that. You can say whatever, but the vast majority of black women, just like the vast majority of black men, we're looking for each other. We depend on each other. And so when I saw those women go after Tashina Arnold, it told me, number one, that she was undeniably an ally to the black man.
Yeah.
If I go out in the world and find her and meet her, I will marry her, protect her, love her, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are sisters and brothers are looking
Yeah.
to protect, not some woman who's telling us how horrible and crazy we are. Sean Berry says that she said nothing wrong, but the females went in on her.
They did.
Absolutely,
They
because
did.
you can be exactly right, but if you are right or wrong, it doesn't matter if someone hates the people that you're talking about. And this goes back to patriarchy, because patriarchy, an extension of white supremacy, has taught everyone, including some black women, some black people, to hate black men. We have to understand who the target is, who has the bullseye on their back. The same group of people who have had the bullseye forever since we've been here. And that doesn't mean that Black women aren't under attack. Certainly they are, but we know to attack the community, you physically attack the man and you attack the woman with propaganda. You get the woman to understand things, or not to understand, but to be confused about her man,
Mm-hmm.
her natural ally. And it comes down, so let's, it's not just, it's patriarchy, but it goes to white women first who spread the propaganda to Black women who think that they're allies. So, for example, when that filthy bitch, Hillary Clinton, called us super
Super
predators
predators
and said that we must be brought to
to
heel,
heal.
everybody, Black men and women, should have stood up and rejected her, refused to vote for her, refused to talk about her. But some kind of way, some Black women thought that they had a friend in this filthy demon. And she's a filthy demon, dog, hag,
Uh,
harpy.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean, yeah,
she hates
so
us.
it is. And, I mean, the thing about white women is that, that's the other thing about patriarchy, is that, despite how they claim to be oppressed, which I think is so funny. Um, it's really quite hilarious, in a very sick and perverted way. But the other thing that patriarchy serves to do is to protect her ass.
Yes.
Um, that
Yes.
let's not forget that. So it's interesting. So white supremacy, patriarchy/patriarchy serves to protect her ass, and it serves directly to destroy Black men. Like, the two things exist at the same time, and we do not, as a collective, talk about that enough. We do not embrace that idea enough, because if we did, we would not be standing at the scratch line at this manufactured um, gender war. But there are two things that you mentioned. The one of the comments about going in on Tashina Arnold. I think I want to say to any Black women who are listening, and particularly those of us who really understand what's happening with this gender war, and it's just trying to destroy our men by the minute, our fathers, our lovers, our brothers, our sons, our husbands, right? We have to be more vocal, right? And Black women they're coming for us. You say one thing, you're caping, you're male centered, you're all of you ain't shit, like all of those things they have to say about us. They reserve nice little cute pet names for us that are meant to be insults and disparaging. But we got to hold steady, because we know the truth, and it is contingent upon us, because they're definitely not going to hear this message from Black men. And not to mention, Black men already have their mandate, right? They got man stuff to do, right? So
Right.
this stuff with Black women, this is the stuff that other Black women have to deal with. We're the ones that are going to have to put this shit in check. We're the ones
Absolutely.
that are going to have to stomp it out. And
Well, and it would be to the Black woman's benefit to stomp that shit out, because for all of the I don't need a man and all the
yeah,
other I can do it by myself, all the other psycho stupid bullshit that we've heard from some of our most craziest Black women, the reality of it is we need each other. And so, we can't continue, to even feed into a discussion where a woman is saying, I don't need a man,
yeah.
because unless she's a lesbian.
Well, and here's the thing. We often talk about Black women finding happiness elsewhere. I think we somehow, even though we talk about Black men as all they want is white women and et cetera, which we know through the data that that's not true. But the other thing is that we have to understand that Black men have options. We, as American Black women, They don't have to be with us. They want to be with us, but they don't have to be. And if we continue, and this comes, this kind of brings it full circle. If we continue to treat them like the enemy, that we can't love them, and we can't be loved by them. Who wants to deal with that? Who,
That's right.
it just doesn't, it's not even logical, right? It's not
Yeah,
even logical, and it doesn't serve anybody's self-interest. I mean, when you go out to, you know find someone to create a family with, and create community with, you're serving your best interests, and that of the people around you. So if the only thing you have to choose from, um are people who don't love you. And I read a tweet recently that said that there are very few people that love Black men, and I thought about it, and it brought a tear to my eye, because
yeah.
that's what Black men are feeling. That's
Yeah.
what Black men are feeling. And
Well,
so,
and so that's pretty new, I want to say, for us to feel it and acknowledge it. It's been
hmm,
happening for a while,
yeah,
but for the most part, we were just trying to ignore it,
right,
hoping that it would self correct.
yeah,
But somewhere around 5 to 7 years ago, brothers woke up. And so a lot of us are really, really paying attention to the bad behavior that is coming from the patriarchy and feminism and into some of our sisters, and we're starting to reject it. And
yeah.
so, what that means, and here's what sisters have to understand: you can't just say, "Oh, I don't care. We don't want you anyway." Shut your damn lie.
Use a damn
You're damn lie,
a
because
lie, a
no,
whole
no,
lie.
a whole lie. No Black woman wants to just be out there on their own. They can lie, they can say it, but it's not true. And so, what we're dealing with now is, for the first time in this 40 plus year movement of white supremacy and the patriarchy to turn Black women against Black men are saying, oh, okay, well, we're going to throw you away. And so, but what we haven't done yet, well, some of us have. Some Black men are crazy as shit too. Some Black men have thrown away all of Black women, but what the collective in general is doing is throwing away those with bad behavior. We're discussing the bad behavior now. We're not just saying, oh, those B's and H's, let's throw them all away. We're saying those bitches who do this, let's
Mhm,
throw them away. We're
mhm,
specifically looking at women who are over 40, who haven't had children, haven't been married. We're looking at those women sideways. Some brothers are looking at women who are over 40 and have multiple children and aren't married, and they're looking at them sideways. But I'll say, as a brother over 50, I would rather, if I'm dealing with a woman over 40, that she had children, because at least there's a chance that she's not selfish and she has been focusing on some things outside of her. But so, as far as the gender war, back to the gender war, what we're seeing, for me as a Black man, I'm seeing, especially within the part of the manosphere that isn't fueled by psychoses, bitter
mhm.
male bitches and the like, that part which is intellectual, uh, we're really, really paying attention to the things that these Black women are saying and to the things that they're doing. We're paying attention to Black girl magic when it isn't magical. We're paying attention to Black women accepting all the accolades, basically pats on the head from the
Mhm.
Democratic Party
Yeah.
for talking shit about us and pretending, that you've saved the election so that they can talk about those bad Black men. We're paying attention to all of this, and it's just not going to go well.
Yeah.
Uh, Particularly, well, so let me say this, and I'm gonna let you speak, because I'm going down a whole
No,
rabbit
no,
hole.
no, that's
But
fine.
the particular group of Black women who are going to be left behind first are Black women over 40, who are over 40 and they're angry and they're saying crazy shit, but then they're still looking for a man. So, what a lot of brothers are doing is that they're looking for younger women, not necessarily, let's just go to white women, Asian women, let's go to other countries. We're looking at younger women who may not have all the burn out all the craziness and who have probably not accepted uh, white supremacy and patriarchy through feminism uh, as much.
Yeah, and that may even be a challenge if, she's being parented by someone who, or, mothered, I should be very specific. If she's being mothered by someone who certainly
It's
has
crazy.
adopted all of those, um, you know, just unfounded uh, things and sentiments about Black men. But just sort of switching it a little bit, we talk about Black men and patriarchy within our collective, and yet we don't acknowledge that we're functioning really as a matriarchy, which in the Western
And
world,
speak on it.
in a Western world, where they do that at.
Speak on it. Put a week on it.
you
Yeah,
know I
yeah.
mean, where they do that at,
That is so psychotic to hear these women talk about a patriarchy in the black community when we know for certain it's a matriarchy. Lynn, let me read a comment
Okay.
from Lynn Collins Battle. She said, a lot of the black women I know that say they don't need a man have lived a life without a loving father, grandfather, uncle, brother. If they've had that love, they wouldn't feel that way. The need for black extends beyond the romantic. Pow. That is so that's so real. And that's why, we have to deal with this from all angles, because if we don't start to really attack the issues that are fueling the gender war, man, it's going to hurt everybody. And unfortunately, it's going to hurt women and children first, you
Yeah.
know.
Right. And I think another thing that's so important about that point is that no one is saying that Black men are perfect. No one is saying that by any stretch of the imagination. And certainly no one is saying that Black women have not experienced our share of hurt and pain and trauma at the hands of Black men. That we that just doesn't make any sense to say that. But what we are saying, there are at least two very important things that we have to remember when we have that discussion. And the first is that the pain that we are feeling and the things that we go through that are not positive, and very honestly that are negative with Black men, isn't happening because they are Black. It is happening because we live in a society, right, where everybody is being likely to be hurt by the ones in closest proximity to them. Like
Yes.
that's so instead of understanding that, because guess who is responsible for most likely beating the hell out of a white woman? Oh, let me guess. Oh, her white man, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's Black men didn't run into the neighborhood and say, I'm gonna beat the hell out of somebody today. Let me beat, when some
Right.
Asian dude that say, you know what, I'm over here. Let me check this. No, it's who it that's human nature. That's just how things work. But we have assigned that pain and those traumas specifically to Black men, saying it's because they are Black men that they do this. Like something is inherently wrong with them. And and we got to get out of that thinking. And then the second thing that we have to remember is that we hurt each other, right? We hurt
Yes.
each other. And
Yes.
again, that goes back to the fact that those kinds of interactions, trauma based, things where we are not honoring each other, or we're building, we're bringing our own anger and frustration or rage or whatever the case may be, our own sicknesses or addictions or whatever the case may be, we bring them to each other because we are within each other's proximity. But
Yes.
to the we hurt men, And that's another conversation, women, particularly when we are talking about corporal punishment and single Black mothers, and the punishment that we heap onto our children, and particularly Black boys.
Yeah.
And there's an article that Dr. Stacy Patton, and I think I mentioned this before, Dr. Tommy Curry wrote, that talked about the fact that, Black feminism is very, very vocal about the physical abuse, the mental and sexual violence that they claim that Black men have heaped onto Black women, but refuse to have any conversations. There are none documented by, Black feminism about the trauma that we bring to our Black children. So
Well,
we really have to be mindful of those two things. So,
yeah.
and so, if we are going to have, again, any peace and harmony, ladies, you know, if we are going to be loved by Black men, we have to very deliberately, very consciously shake off all of these, um, all of this propaganda,
All the
all
propaganda.
all of that is they're spoon feeding it to us, and many of us are opening our mouths quite wide to be fed more and more and more.
Eager.
um yeah,
So,
because it go ahead.
well, no, I was just going to say that going back to the trauma, you were talking about Black boys are getting it from their mothers, which I know firsthand because I had to protect my son by taking him from that person
Hmm. Hmm.
to protect him. But in addition, Black men were getting traumatized in relationships. And
Yes.
for the longest, we weren't
No,
talking about it.
no, they
No
weren't
one was
talking
talking
about it.
about it. Look, there's and I'm not going to, go too deep into the story, but a young lady that I dated in the 90s, we broke up. She left me, has been for over 20 years telling mutual friends that I was abusive to her, when in fact she was abusing me. And I was young and didn't really understand that
Yeah.
because, like most Black men, that's a little woman, whatever. But she would do things physically like this, walking up on me, poking me,
Hmm.
all in my face. But she would do things emotionally that were very, very hurtful and abusive. And so for a long time, we just, man up. So we weren't dealing with that, but we're starting to deal with it now. And so that's going to mean two things. One, hopefully, it'll lead Black men to a place where more of us can get therapy and
Yeah.
really, truly heal. But it's going to lead us to a place where more of those kinds of Black women are going to be rejected, even if they're fine. Like it used to be, well, I'm gonna at least get the booty, but
Right.
now, a lot of them are being thrown away no matter what's going on because, shoot, everybody's throwing the booty now. But
Right.
but the trauma that Black men and boys have experienced at the hands of Black women is not to be kind of, just shrugging your shoulders at. And it is important for us to look at those things because those are things that come from, again, white supremacy, the
White
patriarchy,
supremacy.
through feminism,
Yeah.
the propaganda that comes to Black women that says, and you and I talked about this before because you gave me that word. Black women have successfully, many of them, not all, have successfully thingamatized Black men.
Seriously.
And when you turn someone into a thing, you don't have to respect them. You don't have. That's why Black women love saying Black women don't owe you shit.
Don't owe
Uh,
you shit.
I'm gonna do
Yeah.
a T-shirt that says Black men don't owe you shit either.
Right. And
Now,
you got to put the either in.
either,
You got to put the either. But
either.
it's, it's so telling, and particularly when you're talking about the abuse of that Black women have heaped onto to Black men. I mean, we have to understand too that this idea of, you know, of women in general being able to abuse men, has been normalized, since the beginning. Like, don't you remember, like, watching, soap operas? I'm sure out in the virtual world, and they didn't have. Come on now, we were grown when they finally had black people that were not domestics on soap operas, and white women would get in a tizzy, and all of a sudden that hand would come, from down south, and then slap the
Yeah.
shit out of a man. And then, and he would be looking at her like, okay, I'm going to take that, and, well, let me just, why are you so angry with me? And then it would be this something that was actually turned into, a rather carnal moment. Like, and,
Yeah.
so there's, we got to really dissect some of this stuff. So this
Because
idea,
some of it's pretty
yeah,
sick.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so this idea that women can put their hands on, slap the hell out of a man, or be all up in his face and pushing him, and that's associated with sex and such, you know it's normalized, and it's abuse. It's
Well,
it's a it is abusive.
it's abuse. And for anyone who wants to try to deny it, it's been a part of mainstream culture for a long
Long
time.
time.
There's a movie, I can't think of the name of it. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. And in the movie, he comes into a town, he's changing it, he takes over the town, he paints it all red, calls the town hell. In the very first portion of the movie, a woman comes up to him, she's out of control, she slaps the shit out of him. This is in the 70s, I believe, maybe 60s, but I believe the 70s.
Hmm.
She slaps him, he takes her in the barn and he rapes her, and she falls in love.
Hmm.
And I remember watching, because I was going through all the old movies, because I love Westerns. I was like in my early 20s. And I remember thinking, how sick is
Sick.
that?
How
So she
sick.
slapped the shit out of him. He raped her. Now she's in
In
love.
love.
And so some of that crap is coming to us because a lot of sisters really believe, and I've been in a couple of relationships like that where they believe they can do what they want physically, and then all it's going to turn into sex and everything is going to
Yeah.
be okay.
Yeah.
And that's pretty sick. And you learn that, black
You
women, that's
learn that.
not
Yeah.
who you are. Like Brother Malcolm said, who taught you to hate
Hate
yourself?
yourself. Yeah, it's real. It's real deep. So we are functioning as a matriarchy, which is again, this is not what in the Western world. This is not what's happening, and it's by design. um, we're seeing it in politics as well. What is it? What's the word? Gynocracy. You know, and so many of our elected officials are Black women, which it's not that I have a problem with Black women being in these elected positions,
But
but what
that's
I
an
do.
agenda.
Yeah, but it's an agenda. And again, folks, it's not to say that we don't have Black women who are, really capable of leading. That's not the issue. The issue is, if you are a Black woman that is stepping into the political arena and you don't like Black men, then you are not going to do right by our collective. You
What
just
did
you
what
just
did you
are
say
not.
about Kamala Harris? What did you say
What did
about
I say
Kamala
about
Harris?
her? Yeah, yeah. If you're just not going to do right, by our collective, and it is part of the agenda. Like, how do you lead, and politically, let's say, a predominantly Black city, and you don't like Black men, and yet the majority of the people that are being harassed by the police, or victims of of murder, or victims of robbery, that they're Black men, or the ones who are ending up in prison, or the ones who are dropping out of school, and such. If those are the people that make up those numbers largely, and you don't like them, you don't care about them, then you're not going to do right by them, and that doesn't serve our collective. So we have to be really mindful of this thing about talking about black men as having privilege through this patriarchy, because they don't. They're black men, and I don't say this facetiously. Black men are not winning.
That's right.
You can't win when you are the ones who are in most need of mental health services and you can't get them,
Right.
when you are in most need of housing, because we always have, women and children are usually the face of homelessness, where black men disproportionately suffer from homelessness, but they can't get the assistance that they need. If you are, like I said, the ones who are most likely to be falsely accused of a crime, or yeah, I know a lot of data. The most likely to be chosen, I just said that, falsely accused of a crime, but also misidentified in a lineup.
In the lineup. That's right.
Like it just, you pull one out the air and go Google it and see what the numbers say about it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. No
and
doubt.
it's true. So we have to really, we gotta, instead of really sort of trying to, you know, and it's not even an investigation. We're just so fixated on black men have to be the problem. Black men have to be the problem because,
Yeah.
who else could be the problem? Because we're not the problem. Black men have to be the problem. And we're not investigating very closely this thing called
Mm,
racism and white
We're
supremacy. We're
we're
not
not investigating at all.
at
We're,
all.
we're not, because we've been taught, many black women and some black men, to immediately identify black men as the problem.
As a problem.
We demonize black men, and now it's razor sharp now that the LGBT has, formed, the Wonder Twin powers, and,
Right.
formed, this leviathan of craziness, propaganda, and hate. Now they've gone razor sharp, and now it's straight black men
Yeah.
who are being excoriated, which is dangerous for gay black men, because if we are being targeted, then that means that you're kind of left out there to be targeted and scapegoated as well. And so I hope a lot of people, there's a black gay activist, Cleo Managa, and he's a dope brother, and I hope
He
that
is dope.
I hope more gay black men kind of follow his program, which is to leave the white gay
Yeah.
mafia the hell
Alone.
alone,
Leave him
because they're not
alone.
about black people, and just do
Yeah.
your own thing. And that needs to, to go back to black women. Black women also need to leave the white feminist mafia the hell alone and do something that is specific for black women, and they would be shocked at all the men who would turn out to protect them.
Yeah, well, not only do, because there's been this discussion of womanism and etc. And I know that there is a real thing called womanism. I think that there is also this thing called womanism that black women talk about, to say, oh no, we're not subscribing to this, white feminism. There's this, we practice womanism. No, you really don't, because when you start asking them about womanism, and then they want to talk about Audre Lorde, I'm sorry, then you're not practicing womanism. I'm I'm
Right,
I'm here to tell you, you are
right.
not
You you
practicing
you're practicing white feminism, and you're
your
calling it womanism,
womanism.
and you need to keep it real.
And you need
You
to keep it
know,
real.
yeah,
And as we continue to do that self-reflection and say, what are we really doing, like in doing that investigation, are these things, that we hear about black men, are they really real? How are we contributing to that, this problem? How are we contributing and perpetuating the propaganda? But the other thing that we have to ask ourselves, and like, we want to be protected, and we talk about this patriarchy, and this whole thing of masculinity, and all of this, we we're so fickle. We're so fickle because we talk about, we'll throw out toxic masculinity, then we talk about black men as having being having the benefit of patriarchy, and then we'll say, but we want black men to lead and we want them to protect and all this other stuff, but then we don't want to be the women that
that we
aligns
want
with
and
those
need.
ideals. You want a
Yeah.
man, you want black men to be traditional black men as you see them, but then you don't want to be a traditional black woman. Like,
Boom.
I don't get it.
Pow, pow,
I
pow.
don't get it.
Yeah. Well, and it's also confusing to see the same women who say, I want you to be traditional, I want you to lead, I want you to protect and provide, turn around and say, I'm better than you.
They turn around and say, I'm better than you. I have my own,
Right.
and and I ain't cooking you dinner. You got to cook it
Right.
your damn self.
And then say, well, if you don't want me, it's because you're intimidated. No, I'm just not interested.
I'm not
Just,
interested.
especially you take a brother like myself, who's working, taking care of his son on his own, doing his thing, working really hard to achieve my goals. I cook better than any woman I've ever dated. So to think that I'm on some, oh, you better cook and clean, it would be nice if you cleaned, don't care if you cook because I do it well and I like it. So to talk about, relationships, to think, oh, they're trying to oppress us, they're trying, nah, we really, the good brothers, those of us who are just good and decent guys were raised with black women in the home who loved us. We just want a similar woman to pair with, someone who just loves us, respects us. That's it. And when you walk into a relationship talking about what you want, I want to protect a provider, you got to lead, you got to do this, you got to do that. And there's nothing on your list that talks about what you're going to do. Well, these days you probably are going to be thrown away.
You're going to be
That's,
thrown away. But
that's just where we are.
it's funny, and and I know we're probably running out of time, but you mentioned about brothers saying, hey, we just we had loving mothers in our homes who were loving mothers, and they were loving wives, and etc., and we're looking for that. What was that sister that told Cam Newton, then go marry your mama, because he was talking about this very idea that that black women, that they do not understand or embrace these traditions.
Right.
And she told him, the one that was going out with the white dude that dropped her, she told him to go marry his mama. And it's like, it's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Like come on.
Well, I want to go back to, I'm going to do two things. I want to go back to something you said earlier when you
Hmm.
talked about how black women have to start speaking up against other black women.
Yes.
Because here's what we do know, you and I both know, that there are a lot of black women who are aware, who are conscious, who love black men, and
Yes.
who aren't with the bullshit, but they can't just watch it happen. They
Yeah.
have to speak up. They got to jump in there because otherwise, someone like me will look crazy and angry and, oh, you hate black women
Right.
because it's me, because I'm a
Yeah.
man. And so we got to do that. The other thing we have to do is, just to kind of,
Hmm.
concretize everything that we've talked about. Black women have basically taken the white woman's history and existence and grafted it onto their back. So they're pretending to be white women, and then they're wondering why a lot of black men just won't engage. It's because we can't relate to that.
Yeah.
Some brothers can because they're white men. Some brothers, and I've been saying this, and this is a whole nother show. Some
Another
brothers
show.
have been raised to be strong black women
Right.
themselves,
Right.
which is worse
Right.
than a male bitch. They've
Right.
they've been raised to think like women, to exist as women, so they don't really get it. They don't understand when black men are trying to explain these things. But when a black woman has had, like Candace Owens, when a black woman like Kamala Harris, when these women out here have taken on the white woman's existence and put it inside of them and still pretend to be black women, they look, it's like watching a snake bark. And so we got to recognize, that these things exist and then deal with them accordingly.
Yeah. Well, I have this theory that that black women, the modern black woman, has been taught to fantasize the interaction between our foremothers and her owners. And I think that we have, in fact, convinced ourselves that those monstrous, I don't even want to call them people, but those monsters somehow loved us, and that, raping us was the only way that they could show their affection for us. Now,
Yeah.
I don't, I can almost I could actually relate to how someone who is going through that would have to would be so traumatized that in order to be in a space to lessen, it's almost like, self-preservation, right? I could even understand how someone going through that would convince themselves that that's exactly what it is, because the idea that you would just be subjected to a sexual like rape at any person's whim is insanity. That just is just cruelty, is cruelty and is wickedness. But in this
Absolutely.
modern day, I think that that's exactly what we've done, is romanticized about that. I mean, if you've
Yeah.
ever and because we have romanticized this, and this is getting to your point about black women sort of grafting this existence onto our backs,
The white woman's existence.
is
Yeah.
that I think that somehow some of us think that we can replace Miss Ann, you know,
Whoo. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we in our appearance, in our engagements, this partnership, this and it's not just Kamala, but if we look and within our corporations, these partnerships, white men, they like to give black women that seal of approval and dub us somebody special.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of partnerships, I mean, throughout, if we look at Biden's, and I'm not picking on people, I'm just stating the facts, but if we look at Biden's campaign and who he has in his campaign, and the three most prominent women in his campaign, or excuse me, in his administration, do not have black partners.
How did that
Is
happen?
that a
It was
coincidence?
it was not an accident.
No,
It was not an
that was eligibility criteria.
Well, especially when you look at Camel Toe, who basically was a single woman just out there dragging that thing around, using it as a bargaining chip. And then suddenly, when she was being vetted to go, to higher
Mhm.
heights, she went out and found this big head, bad breath stink machine and with kids and married him.
Yeah,
That was kind of weird to me. That was
yeah,
kind of weird, and looking at of all the people he could have brought to the Supreme Court, he brought Katanji in there, who has a horrible fucking record
yes,
of
yeah,
dealing with black people. So when
and the-
sisters was,
yeah,
oh, black girl magic, yeah, she hates your ass too. And to bring her in there, of all the black women that you could have brought in, you brought in one who had a white husband. I don't think any of these things are accidents.
I don't think they're
Yeah.
accidents either, and I think that the like I said, the women, those of us who know, we gotta be loud and proud and deliberate and unrelenting and unapologetic. Like, just say this is some bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm out here, and I'm going to continue to be out here, and everywhere I go. I mean, I have black sons, and
Mhm.
I am very, it's interesting. You know, my thinking, and I want to say it became really crystallized when I became a mother, because my first child is a boy. You know, my first child is this baby boy who I'm instantly in love with.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him and I'm realizing instantly how the world is looking at him, you
Yes.
know. And that crystallized my thinking. I was like, oh, hell to the no. Like, you know. And so, as you know, at the very least, we owe this, you know, being vocal and being deliberate and being unapologetic and knowing, understanding, you know, white feminism as white supremacy. We owe it to our sons. And
Yeah.
because otherwise we are turning them loose into a world that will destroy them. and
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and wait a minute. And the person, you know, who's going to be sent to destroy them is either going to be a white man, a white woman, or a black woman.
Or a black woman. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
better know.
Sadly. Yeah.
We better
Better
know.
recognize.
We
Better
better
recognize.
recognize.
Yeah. So yeah. So let's see if we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
For me, I just want to reiterate when we talk about a patriarchy, that word has no place in the black community
None.
because most of our households are being run by women. Or I mean, we
Yes.
talk about who's actually in the homes with these children. The black man is probably participating in the ways in which he can or is allowed to, but black women are running the majority of these households. So that, by definition, is a matriarchy. But we also have to understand what a patriarchy is so that we can understand what's going on. It is a tool of white supremacy.
Oh,
And so
white
I'm going to
supremacy.
need sisters to stop putting stuff on black men that we just don't have. We
Yeah.
don't have any privilege. We're not setting any rules. We're just out here. We,
Yeah.
we
And
out here.
yeah, we oh, I mean, you know, if we continue to use this term and buy into this term, um, we are we are really adding to the days of, you know, how much longer will we exist? And we got to be real about that. We can't, as you said earlier, we can't. We're in it together. You
Yeah,
know, we're in it together. So, um, you know, if black men fail, we're going to fail.
we all fail.
We all fail, and that's it. And then and I guess my last point is when you said, you know, there's no place in our community for patriarchy, and yet we've been really accepting of matriarchy. There's really no place in our community for matriarchy because we understand what it has done to our community and
Yeah,
how it has created a brokenness in our family and our family structures. It's created a brokenness between how we interact, you know, with black men, how we even interact with other black women. So there's really no place for it. And none of these things, patriarchy or matriarchy, are African centered because, you know, they're not. What
right.
you do, you know, is an African centered existence is you contribute in the ways that need to be contributed. You
Yeah,
know, you are working in, you know, I don't like this, I don't necessarily like the word partnership because, you know, it just is taking on different meanings, but the
yeah,
whole idea that you are working together for a shared goal. And how you move and how he moves, you know, it's all in sync, it's all it's all calibrated, it is a collaboration. And so
yeah.
again, the patriarchy nor the matriarchy are African centered and belong in our community. And so we got to be real about that.
That's right. That's right. There you go. Another one that was hot. You know,
That's hot.
appreciate you. So
Appreciate you.
yeah. So let's talk. Now that we've put a couple of them in, and nail down a day and a time, we can do Four Sisters only under Black Love today, and you can start talking about guests and topics, and let's make it a regular thing.
Let's, sisters, I'm counting on us. You know, our brothers are counting on us. They need us. And I also recognize that there are some sisters who are so madly in love with black men they can't even imagine that this is happening. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to like nudge them and say, look, sister, I know that you are just so in love right now, and everything is just wonderful, but let me tell you what's going on out here. So we also know
Yeah.
we also know that that is happening too. So
Indeed.
we gonna do this thing, sisters. We're gonna do it.
All right. Cool. Well,
All
there's
right.
another one. Thank you,
There's
Denise.
another.
All
Thank
right.
you, Brother Darryl. Peace and love,
Peace.
everybody.
All right.